We have come together this morning to remember our beloved Lillian Chernikoff. My name is Joseph Kirsch. I'm a chaplain at Menorah Park, and I was very fond of Lillian, privileged to know her. Over the years, she was on our campus, as well as to have met her daughter Rochelle. I was a deep admirer of her devotion and steadfast clinging to our traditions, her love of family, her inner strength that really emanated from her and created a special aura around her that we all were able to enjoy and feel. Those who knew her were attracted deeply to her. She was a magnet of love, of connectivity to family, to tradition. And Howard and Luria is here together with Cantor Schiffman, and we hope to, on some level, pay tribute and be a support to the family to remember this great woman. It's traditional to begin our service with some words from the scripture, some poems, and Rabbi Luria will recite some prayers for us.
Thank you, Rabbi Kirsch. It was an honor to be there yesterday when Rabbi Kirsch gathered with the family. Really incredible remembrances of Lillian, of Aunt Lil. And it's traditional every Friday night when one sits down to the Shabbos table to honor and bless an incredible wife, an incredible mother with a passage from the book of Proverbs. And today, as we remember an incredible wife, an incredible daughter, an incredible sister, an incredible aunt, an incredible mother, and the list goes on, cousin and friend, it's very fitting to read this passage known as Eshet Chayil. Eshet Chayil miyimsa v'rachot mibne mikra batakba lebala v'shala lo yachsar. What a precious find is a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no thing. She is good to him, never bad, all the days of her life. She opens her hand to the needy, extends her hand to the poor. She is clothed with strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is guided by kindness. She oversees the activities of her household. She never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her, saying, "Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all." Charm is deceitful and beauty vain, but a God-fearing woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand, and wherever people gather, her deeds will speak her praise. Cantor Schiffman and I are here on behalf of B'nai Yeshurun, a temple on the Heights. Lillian has been connected to Heights Temple for many, many years, and I know that. I remember seeing her there on the holidays, on yort sites and other occasions. And I know as we were sitting with the family remembering, she has deep connections there, connected to Sally Malberg, Ida Friedman, and many other of the stalwarts, the pillars, the foundations of our congregation, in particular of our religious school. And we're grateful for Lillian and for all that she has given to our congregation. And to you, Rochelle, and to the whole family, we send much comfort and strength. We know that you were an incredibly devoted daughter, even from afar, coming back and forth all the time. And this circle of friends, especially the Cleveland kids, the nieces and nephews who were like Lil's own children, I know that circle of support was always there and will always be with you as we remember her. I now call on Cantor Schiffman to recite Psalm 23.
I just asked for permission to introduce the cantor because, I omitted Lillian's father, Alma Shalom, was Victor Avigdor Yitzchak HaKohen. We discovered that yesterday afternoon. The family shared that with me. And it's no coincidence we have with us Cantor Aaron Fishman, Aaron, the first Kohen, the Kohen of our people. In fact, it's surely no coincidence that Lillian returned her soul to her Maker shortly before Shabbos Parsha Shemos, the portion of the Torah where for the first time we discuss Aaron, the first Kohen. So, Cantor Schiffman.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא יחסר, בנוטש ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני, נפשי ישובב, ינחני במגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא יירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי. דשנת בשם ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. V'shabti b'veis Adonai l'orech yamim. And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. At this time, it's traditional, we say some words of eulogy for our beloved Lillian, Bas Avigdor Yitzchak HaKohen. We call upon the family. We're going to hear words from Rochelle and then from Cousin Marty.
They didn't tell me how I was supposed to walk up to the podium, so I don't know if I did it right or not. Thank you. Thank everybody for coming here. For my mom, for me, thank you. Everybody here had a different experience of my mom, of Aunt Lil. And I know Marty and maybe a couple other people are going to talk today. But I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I learned and how much I'm going to miss her. I could spend a lot of hours telling you guys just stories, and if you come to the Shiva, we'll tell stories. I mean, I've heard some stories this week that I'd never heard before, and I love that. That's great. All in all, my mom didn't have an easy life. She had a lot of money and health worries throughout her life, not so much money towards the end, more health, but as an adult, she did suffer the loss of her husband, her mother, and her baby sister within a real short time period, 3 years. And recently she's had some tough times. She lost her very beloved baby brother Mel and her very good friend and niece Sandy in a short period of time. If you guys knew my mom, you knew she had some problems hearing, even with the hearing aids. A lot of times you were shouting, even with the hearing aids. But the cruelest of all was the macular degeneration, which took her eyesight in the last 5 to 10 years. And that's where my mom's lessons really shone, because she had integrity and determination through it all. She never questioned her faith. That's why we're having a fairly traditional service here today, because that was important to her. She always wanted to follow the rules. She always wanted to do the right thing, even when the right thing was maybe a little flexible. I remember as a kid asking her how we could have coffee at Passover. They didn't have coffee in the desert. How come we could have coffee at Passover? But if you knew my mom, you knew she had to have her coffee. And everything had to be in its place. No matter how late she'd come back from a trip, she had to unpack her bag before she could go to sleep. It had to be put away correctly. And laundry day, oh my gosh, you couldn't do laundry on Wednesday or Tuesday. It had to be Thursday. There was no other day you could do laundry. And if you wanted Mom to do something on Thursday, you had to work around her laundry schedule. She could be a little bit of a drama queen. And if she was mad at you, you could walk on water and she'd be angry that you left footprints behind. But when you were on her golden list, you could stomp through a puddle. And she would say that you just walked on water. She had such a big heart. Integrity and determination. You know, she quit smoking cold turkey twice. Cold turkey, both times. Another lesson from my mom was she was very resilient. She didn't learn to drive as a kid. She didn't learn to drive as a teenager or even as a young adult. She learned to drive when she needed to take me to the doctor's or the library or whatever, and she didn't want to be dragging me along on the bus. That's when she got around to learning to drive. I could tell you stories about that too. My mom never played sports. I saw her play badminton and croquet in our backyard when I was a little kid. But then one day, in her late 50s, all of a sudden, she up and joined the gym. She'd go and she'd work out, this little gray thing, she was so cute. She would go and she'd work out in the gym for 10 minutes, and she'd get these big guys to help her set the machines correctly. And she'd work out for 10 minutes, and then she'd go sit in the jacuzzi. I went with her a few times. It was very frustrating. She took up pleasure reading with Sandy, my cousin Sandy, mostly in her late 60s. And she learned to use a computer when I moved overseas, so she could email me. That's when she finally agreed to learn to use a computer. She was very resilient. And when she needed to be, she was very sensible. When there was an emergency, you could count on her. No drama, no attitude. She was there. But mostly, my mom was passionate and stubborn. She was really good at saying thank you. She always said thank you. All the way to the end, she said thank you to the nurses and everybody. And she wasn't always so good at saying please, but she always said thank you. And she had a huge heart and was fiercely loyal. And this is the main thing that I wanted to say. She was fiercely loyal, especially to her family and to good hot coffee. If you knew my mom, you knew she would not hesitate to say and reject any coffee that was not up to her standard. It had to be strong. It had to be hot. It had to be good coffee. Otherwise, she didn't want it. But she was never that way with family. My mom never turned down family. No matter what you needed, no matter what you wanted, she was there for you. My cousin Hallie, she was there for years for. Many other the lives you've got here that she's touched. And family had a very broad meaning to my mom. DNA did not matter. All my little cousins here, we don't share any DNA, but we share family, just as I share family with the people in that room. The Marcuses, we share family. the posts. We share family. She touched many lives, and I actually was going to bring her cell phone with me because it was so important to her. I know she would be worried as to where it was right now if I didn't have it, but I lost it in the last couple of days. And, you know, she loved babies and kids. She babysat and had foster kids and foreign exchange students after my dad died so she could pay the utilities and groceries. And there was, I hope you're watching, I know this is being streamed, Yuko in Kyoto. It's one of her foreign exchange students. We got to see her when I took Mom to Japan. We spent 2 days with Yuko, and oh, Mom loved that. Again, I have lots of stories. She was very generous. Many of you have Afghans or puppets that she crocheted, especially for the babies, and she always had food. Today, I'm wearing a macaroni wagon wheel around my neck. And there's more of these waiting at the Shiva for anybody else who wants to wear one. It's in honor of her nurturing spirit and the memories my cousins and I shared yesterday when we were talking about my mom and how she'd always serve the wagon wheel macaroni. Finally, I want to talk about how much I'm going to miss her. My mom gave me many things. She gave me good skin. I got a good complexion. She was there to cheer on all my school plays and awards. And if you invited her to a wedding or a school play or whatever, if she could be there, she was there to see you. Concert, whatever. All those things. She expected a lot, but she always asked, did you do your best? And if you said yes, that was fine. That was good enough. Whether you got an A or a C on your report card, if you did your best, that was enough. My mom gave me the confidence to be independent. She was great about that. I always knew that I was loved. I always knew I had a great base. She gave me the confidence for that. And I really treasured the last 15 years or so, and I promise this is the end of it. I promise, I know it. It's a long time to be sitting here. My mom got to stay with me no matter where I lived for a month at a time the last few years. Not the last few years, but in the last 15 years. And it was great. It was great having her live with me for a month in Texas and Los Angeles and San Diego, wherever. She'd come out. She was always game for it. But what I really missed was going to be traveling with her. What a good travel companion. Oh my gosh. You guys probably know that I was lucky enough to take her around the world, all sorts of places. But did you know she didn't even have a passport till she was 50? When I moved to London for work, that's when she finally got a passport. And that's also the story about how I lost her in the Paris subway, which she told very different from the way I told, but ask me about it at the Shiva. I'll be happy to tell you about it. She loved going to Vegas and playing blackjack. She did a cruise with Stu when he graduated from high school. And I love about this, my cousins gave her luggage for her 80th birthday. Don't you just love the image of them going into Macy's and saying, it's Aunt Lil's 80th birthday. What should we get? Should we get a tablecloth? Should we get her bath salts, station? No, we could probably get her luggage. She'd like that best. And they were right. She loved that. And I'm still using that luggage. She was still using it. It was great times until the dementia shattered her independence, but it didn't shatter her spirit. I wish I could list all the great people who called and came to see her at Manoa Park. Carol taking her out to lunch regularly. The Marcuses bringing the kids. She loved that. Oh my gosh. She always said, oh, Sammy will love this. Oh, the twins will like that. She always was thinking about the little kids. Glenn and Lisa, of course. Stuart, Pam. So many people called, even when they couldn't be here. And the caregivers at Manoa Park. I don't know if they'll see this stream or not, but they were wonderful. They sometimes had to put up with my mother's spirit, which could be a little disruptive at times. But even when they weren't on duty, they would call in to check and see how she was. And during these last few days, even the ones who didn't work in her unit came over to see how she was doing. Finally, I just want to tell you as a little story about her spirit. The day we went to the neurologist and determined that she couldn't live in her own apartment anymore, that she had to go to the nursing home, was really difficult. We weren't sure whether she could handle being by herself anymore. And we were driving back from Cleveland Clinic at 5 o'clock in rush hour. And my mom we had the best conversations in the car because she could hear me really well then. She turned to me and she said, "Oh, I guess I really got my wings clipped today." And I said, "Yeah, Mom, I'm afraid you did." And then, you're going to love this, she said, "I guess I don't need my silverware anymore." I don't know why, but she was worried about her silverware. But then she said the most important thing. She turned to me, and my mom said, in that car, knowing that she was going to move into a nursing home, she said, "Thank you." She thanked me because she knew that we had done our best to give her the best life we could, to keep her independent, to give her the richest life we could, and that the decision was made out of love. And I know she loved me, and I know she loved all of you, and she'd be very honored that you're here. And I know that you all loved her. And I hope her spirit, her memory, and some of the lessons that she taught me will live on with you. But I really thank you all for being here. It means so much, and I know that this is the way she would want to do it. There's candy in the corridor. And there's also maps for the Shiva, to get to the Shiva from in the corridor for anybody who needs them. But thank you for letting me share a little bit about the lessons I learned from my mom.
Rochelle, words from the heart penetrate the heart. It was very sacred yesterday for Joseph Kirsch and Hal to be with the family, and we met the aunt and the cousins, and just to feel the love, surrounded by the love and the memories, was very moving. And Marty shared so many important details of our beloved Lillian, and he's going to share them with us again today. We call upon our cousin, nephew, Marty. Please say some words of eulogy.
I don't have a lot to say. So I do have a letter from my Aunt Bonnie that I'm going to read for her, Uncle Mel's wife. I gotta find my goal. But I will tell you, I was on the gold list. Many of you may know me, and I probably shouldn't have been, but I was on the gold list. I was also Aunt Lil's favorite. Until Lisa came along. And then Lisa became Aunt Lil's favorite. All right? Okay. For today. No, I think we were all Aunt Lil's favorites. I know we were. Okay, so this is written by Bonnie Baskin, who is Aunt Lil's sister-in-law and my Uncle Mel's wife. I first met my sister-in-law, Lil, in January of 1964. I had met her brother, Mel, the month before, and we both knew that we were going to be a match. Mel was living with Lil at the time, and we spent a lot of time at her house. One of my favorite memories was watching and listening to Lil light the Shabbos candles. After she said the traditional prayers, she had her own special prayers. She then proceeded to name all of her brothers and sisters, their spouses, all their children, and always ended with a special blessing for her husband and daughter. Having Rosh Hashanah or Passover at Lil's house was always an event. The tables extended from her small dining room into the living room, and at times blocking the front door. The house was filled with family, not only her own family, but my family as well. You see, Lil saw no distinction between her nieces and nephews and mine. She loved them all, and that love was returned in full. She was Aunt Lil to all of them. Let's be honest now. Lil was not the greatest of cooks. I never left hungry, ever. We piled chicken bones to see who could get the most. So I don't know if she was a bad cook or not, but I never left there hungry. But there were certain foods that you couldn't get enough of. My son loved her homemade applesauce, which she always made for Passover, and we would always get a jar to take home. At Passover, she always had plates full of matzah meal, latkes, some with sugar and some were sugar-free, that she made for my husband. That would be my Uncle Mel. You would walk in the house, say hello, grab your latke, but the ultimate treat she made were her mushroom rolls. I think she made up the recipe herself. They were always a special treat and consumed immediately with great joy. Lil was fiercely devoted to her family and would do anything for them. She loved deeply and reached out to all in her family and those she loved unconditionally and touched our lives with her devotion to Judaism and her love of family. That's all I got, Rabbi.
Very touching, Marty. Marty was really being brief. Marty spent about close to 2 hours with us yesterday, sharing memories. Victor Yitzchak Baskin married Ruth, known as Rivka Salkovitz. He was from Russia, she was from Austria-Hungary. And on the 8th day of Nisan, in 1926, March 23rd, a week before Passover, which plays such an important role in your mom's life, a week before Passover, our beloved Lillian was born. Lillian was the first of 8 children in the family, 8 always being a special number, 8 beyond the natural, the 8 days of circumcision, 8 a very special number, and she was the first that brought a blessing of 7 more to the family. Born in Cleveland, went to John Hay High School, lived in the Glenville area, 105th Street. Her parents worked very, very hard. They would board horses. Her father was a rag and bone man. Victor would sharpen knives. He would go around with a horse and carts. Sadly, they struggled financially. The times were difficult, the depression, and they lost the stable. But they didn't lose each other. They continued in strength, and Lillian was there to be an important part of the family. In fact, she helped raise some of the children. She probably helped raise them all to some extent, but certainly Zelda, Shana, Mendel, the younger 3. Her father took ill as a young man, and he passed away in 1946. She left high school after 10th grade to go to work. And she worked in a clothing factory, sewing or folding, and she would give her whole paycheck to her mother, Ruth, to help the family. The whole paycheck. You know, the Torah talks about tithing, giving meiser, a 10th, and a generous person could give a 20th, and beyond the 20th, a 5th. Beyond the 5th, we say we don't want to give because the person shouldn't cause themselves to fall into poverty. How can we help others? But to Lillian, she wasn't giving more than a 5th. That was herself. She was helping herself. Her family was her. It was one and the same. And so she gave her whole paycheck from her work to her mom to help the family. That kind of tzedakah is really legendary. In 1954, she was married, and she met her beloved Lillian Chernikoff. Not long before that, of course, before her marriage. Israel spelled, fascinatingly, Israel. And I think that speaks really of the family they were. Very real people. They were real, straightforward. If you know Rochelle, she's very real. She's very straightforward. And she speaks from the heart. They met through best friends. Lillian met her beloved Israel through their best friends, Beatrice and Max Factor. And Israel was dating her for quite some time, and she was hoping there would be an engagement, but nothing seemed to be happening. And they went out one evening, and they were eating, and she had gotten a photo album to give him, kind of like it was nice meeting you and knowing you, but if we're not moving forward, here's this nice empty photo album that you'll fill with pictures, I guess, of someone else. But unbeknownst to her, at that very dinner, he was planning a surprise. So when the waiter came by with the meal, he uncovered the meal to display a gorgeous watch in the meal. And I believe Lillian wasn't exactly sure what it was, and she takes it out and she sees it's this beautiful watch with stones. And then, of course, he revealed to her that no, this was not part of the menu, but it was his token to her, asking her to become engaged to him, and which she agreed. And she came home, and she would stay with her mom at that point. Her dad had passed away, and she would be there for her mother and siblings. And she placed that special watch on the chest and lay down to rest. In the morning, her mother's waking her up. Lillian, what's that watch there? What's that watch doing? She explained to her mother the good news. She was a Kala. She had gotten engaged. She was married on June 20th, 1954, at the Davis Catering Wedding Hall on Taylor Road. I was touched. I had my own Sheva Brachas there. So it has special memories for many, many people. And she was fortunate to have her mother and siblings at her wedding. For a while, she lived with her grandparents, Lou and Rose Chernikoff, in Cleveland Heights in the Coventry area. Then the family lived on Berkeley, 3384 Berkeley. Uncle Mel, the youngest of the 8, would take them to Kane Park. They'd go down the hill, enjoy the snow. And Rochelle remembers acting in the theater, in the Kane Park Theater. Her father, Israel, Lillian's husband, Israel, was an accountant by trade. He worked for Reliable Tool and Die, and even though the company folded, his devotion was so legendary. They saw such strength and truth in this family. They found ways to keep the family protected with health coverage and did other things to help help the family, even though the company had closed. Rochelle remembers that she always thought the words "accounts receivable" was one word that began with a C, because that was always the topic. Very often, the accounts receivable. Her father was busy at tax season. He had an office in the house on Berkeley and then again in Verona. The family would take trips, and the theme of their trips would be to visit family. They would go to New Jersey, to Aunt Celia, and to Zelda in California. And her father and mother, Rochelle's parents, Lillian and her husband, they really took great joy and pride in each other. They worked as a team. Lillian and her husband were very loving, very affectionate. They loved children. They were very, very empathetic, sensible. In an emergency, Lillian knew how to take the reins and be a leader. As an aunt, she would drop everything to be there for her family. She always wanted what was best for her daughter, very devoted. She went to every school play, concert. She would do everything to help her daughter to have a car for school and and work. She gave strength to her family and loved ones. She allowed her daughter the freedom and the liberty to be whatever she could be. And she was supportive and gave love and confidence. She celebrated all the Jewish holidays, was very disciplined. She never swerved from her traditions, kept a kosher home. Passover, her mother, Ruth, would come over. The family table was really a center for the family. She loved family. She would dream about the next simcha, the next event that she could attend. Not long ago, she said, I want to live to be at Spencer and Benjamin's bar mitzvahs. And she was blessed to be there. Her husband, Israel, died in 1977. She was a woman of 51 years. At that time, she had lost her baby sister and husband and mother right around the same time. But she babysat, took foster children, and made sure to find a way to help keep the family afloat. And as Rochelle said, she began reading for pleasure in her 60s, and she joined the gym. Marty, Lisa, and Glenn were present yesterday to share their memories, and we acknowledge their presence and contribution. I think that we should mention Lillian's aunt, the great Aunt Sylvia. Lillian's sister, is that right? Is that Lillian's aunt? Forgive me, Ruth's sister, thank you. Ruth's sister, a great Aunt Sylvia, who helped Grandma Ruth when her husband passed away and left her with all those children. In fact, yesterday it was revealed, which was very common. We have quite a few residents in Menorah Park that were raised in the Children's Jewish Orphanage, which is now Belfair. And Ruth was afraid that maybe some of her children would have to go live in the orphanage, but Aunt Sylvia jumped in and gave her strength at a time that she probably was quite overwhelmed. And together with Lillian's help, they were able to keep all the children in the home. And what an act of tzedakah, helping a almana and yesomim, a widow and orphans, that was. We mentioned Heights Temple, and Sally Melberg and Aunt Ida Friedman taught there. Rabbi Rube was an influence in the family, and Rochelle attended the Hebrew school and then what we call prosdor. Prosdor. The word prosdor means a foyer, a hallway. And really, it comes from the chapters of the Fathers that life is merely a hallway to the spiritual world. Ha'olam hazeh, this world, dome lefrosdor, is really compared to a hallway to the world to come. It is in this world that we are challenged, in this world that God allows evil to exist miraculously, really, because God is infinitely good and everything God created is good. So how can evil exist? So we call God Shakai, which means he said to the world, die, stop. I want you to stop before you perfect yourself, so that the human beings that I will create will be my partners in perfecting the world. And so today we have our beloved Lillian, who did, shall we say, more than her share to help perfect that world and to realize the Almighty's will. She was very devoted to the synagogues and to high holiday services. At Menorah Park, we all loved her so much. The caretakers were weeping when they heard the news, and some of them just came over to cry about the terrible loss that we all suffered with her departure. Yizkor was also an important theme, to remember the beloved souls whom she thought about always so dearly. She was always concerned in Menorah Park. It's probably a good time to express appreciation to the funeral chapel of Berkowitz-Kumin-Bookatz, who handle all traditional burials and with sincerity and with empathy. And Berkowitz gives Menorah Park every year about 500 Jewish calendars. And Lillian always asked for a calendar for the purpose of knowing when her loved ones' yurtzites would fall out, because she wanted to be able to say the prayer, to remember them, to light a candle, to light a lamp, because Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, the candle of God is the soul of the human being, and that was always so important to her, and Rachel was always there to help her with that as well. She had what we call in Hebrew Emunah Peshuta, a simple faith. She didn't ask, she accepted what she had studied, and when anyone asked her, she said, that's what I was told, that's our tradition, and that's the way I'm going to observe it. And she never swayed in that. That's what I was told, that's what I will do. And the scripture says that God chose the children of Abraham because they would remain steadfast to keep the word of God and our traditions. She said she would keep Passover like she was in the desert. And I must admit, I also have coffee on Passover. You know, there is coffee is kosher lePesach. You can get it kosher for Passover, but maybe they had it in the desert. I don't know. And she was always very, very, very faithful and wanted to do the right thing. And so today, I'm not surprised at all that this is a woman who passes away after Chatzos, after midday on Friday, which we are told is a sacred time when the righteous depart. It's called Nisas Tzadikim, the death of the righteous. She always loved to celebrate the Shabbos. Rochelle, I believe you were there some of the times when we did the Oneg on Friday. Were you there? The joy, the singing of the Shalom Aleichem, and the Cantor Schiffman will shortly sing the Adon Olam that she loved so much. And to drink wine and to use it in the service of God, something that so many people can misuse in wrong ways, she sanctified it and celebrated the Sabbath with wine and joy, and that was always such an important part of who she was and what she did. I just want to conclude with the words of Chavakuk. Chavakuk was the closing book in the scriptures, the Navi Chavakuk. And as the generations became weaker, each one of our great prophets tried to find easier ways that we hit the spiritual bullseye, so to speak. Micha came and said, we can keep the Torah through focusing on three things. Yeshaya came, and he said we can focus on two things and fulfill all the Torah together, using those two things to remain strong. But the Torah tells us, Ba Chavakuk v'hamidon alachas. Chavakuk came and he placed everything upon one pillar, and the pillar was v'tzadik be'emunaso yichyeh. The righteous will live by his faith. The righteous will not question. The righteous will do as they were taught. And the verse is very interesting because it says, Behold, it is people with a puffed up soul that are not upright, but the righteous shall live by his faith. And surely he whom wine betrays, a haughty man whose dwelling shall not remain, who widened his desire like the netherworld, and he is like death and shall never be sated. And he gathered all the nations to himself and collected to himself all peoples. Yet Chavakuk closes, I will rejoice in the Lord. I will jubilate in the God of my salvation. God the Lord is my strength. He made my feet as swift as a deer, and he guides me on high places, to the conductor to play with my melodies. And yes, Lillian, your melodies were beautiful. You left a great legacy that we all must emulate. Your devotion, your love of family, your love of tradition, as we remember you this day. We now recite the Kel Male.
Please rise. El male rachamim, shochein bameromim, hametzeh menucha nechonam, tachad kanfei ashechiyinam, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת לאה בת אביגדור הכהן שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה בסדק כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Leah, Lillian Chernikoff, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May she merit the reward for living a life filled with righteousness, with love, kindness, and generosity. May she rest in peace. And we all say, Amen. Please be seated.
I just want to, on behalf of myself and the residents at Menorah Park and staff, our community, want to ask first forgiveness from Lillian. How could we honor her according to her due, such a great woman? Inevitably, somehow, we must have accidentally somehow done something that's not appropriate in the years that we cared for her, so we ask her forgiveness. It's traditional to ask mechila, forgiveness. And we know you'll be an advocate for your family, a melech yosher, for all of your loved ones who remain on this earth. You'll be an advocate in heaven for all of them, Israel and the world. At this time, we're going to announce the information. Rochelle said we have maps outside to help people to know how to get to the shiva. Immediately following the burial of our beloved, the family will receive friends at Sherry Park Apartments, 2111 Acacia Park Drive in the community room in Lyndhurst until 6 p.m. In lieu of flowers, contributions are suggested to Aunt Lil Chernikoff Fund, care of the Menorah Park Foundation or the Cleveland Site Center. At this time, we ask the pallbearers to come forward.